The Japanese government was still using what now? Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time with me today. And hey, let's talk about something that's ancient. And we have a good reason to talk about something ancient. I know that on this channel we typically talk about apps, credit cards, and the new and greatest in technology for how you can market yourself as an entrepreneur. But believe it or not, something very, very old has come back into the news today from PC Mag, and I want to touch on it a little bit. Now, do any of you remember the floppy disk? If you don't remember the floppy disk, you have probably at least seen pictures of it. In fact, the floppy disk is used as the save as icon for many modern programs and operating systems. And yet, the floppy disk itself has not been in use for a long time. Sony discontinued floppy disks in 2011, and they had peaked long before then. But what a floppy disk was, it was a little 3.5-inch disk that you could put data on, particularly documents, and you could put documents and programs, and you could transport it to other PCs that way. And it was the first truly convenient way where you could take files from one machine to another. And in fact, it was most popular in 1996, where floppy disks had sold over 50 million disks that year. That was how common floppy disks were. Then we found new ways to store and move data and programs around. First with CD-ROMs, then with USB drives, and then external hard drives. And while some of those are still around, you can still use those, primarily people now share things through the cloud, where we, for the most part, don't even need that little device to bring one thing to another, although for security purposes, I still recommend not putting sensitive documents on the cloud, which is why it might surprise you, considering how far we've come along in this, that Japan is actually still using floppy disks. And in fact, it has been announced that in the year 2024, this year, they have finally paved a way to get rid of floppy disks and move to a digital future. Now, how on earth can this be? Isn't Japan a country where they are technologically superior? A lot of the technological innovations happen in Japan. Sony is Japanese, and they are always on the cutting edge. I think Samsung is as well. So there's a lot of innovation that happens in Japan. But I want to put a little bit of a, spotlight on Japanese culture. And for the record, I have been to Japan a couple times. I love Japan. If I could live there, I would. But Japan is very different than America in several ways. Not just socially, but kind of how things are done. So here's the thing. While America is a very progressive country and is always looking towards the future, this isn't working, let's try something different, Japan is very much not that. Japan is very conservative, very let's keep things away. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So while Japan develops all these new technologies, there are people and businesses who basically, they don't want to change anything. They have what they have, it works, it has worked for a long time, and they're just going to keep doing it. That is why, while we in America are talking about things like remote work, hybrid work, and hey, maybe we should work 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week, maybe that's better for everyone's mental health, Japan has for years been stuck in this 5-day-a-work week where you're expected to get to work at 8 a.m. and leave at 7. You work 12-hour days, however that works out. Maybe I got the hours wrong. And when it comes to Japan, in America, high school is no big deal. College is the big thing. And by the way, if you go to college and you drop out, you can go back. Maybe you can change your degree or anything. In Japan, high school is the big thing. You are thinking about your future well in advance, and you want to get into the proper high school, because the high school you get into will determine which college you go to. But college isn't the big deal, because it's high school where you will get noticed, and then you naturally move on to the colleges. Also, in America, if you don't like your job, quit it, leave, maybe even get in a new industry, whereas in Japan, that is really frowned upon. Once you're there, you are there, and for the most part, you don't leave. And that's just the social structures. Technology-wise, streaming is not a big thing over there. There are people who stream their stuff, but the primary way that people still consume movies are discs, which is why, if you've ever wondered why Japan seems to be the last country that still gets 3D discs, it's because they still consume their media by discs. And so it's just very different. Laptops, not really a thing over there. Laptops are more like electronic keyboards. And if you've ever wondered why Sony will not get rid of that disk drive, it's because their Japanese consumer base will reject any PlayStation that does not have a disk drive. So with that in mind, you can kind of see what happened here. What happened is that a lot of government officials were transporting and storing data on floppy disks for a long time. Now, they were also doing it on CDs. They're not that far behind on the times. But what happened was there were very important people in very high positions who liked floppy disks and CDs. They didn't want to give them up. It worked. Why change the system if everything works? And so years go by, and basically there is no real attempt to update the system, because the people in charge, they have no incentive to change the system. Like, you probably know that person in your life who gets to a point in his life where it's just like, you know what? I like the way things are. I like the system I have. I like the technology. And this new thing is stressful, and I don't want to learn it. I'm going to stick with what I know. And you know who those people are. Those are the people who still write out a check and bring it to the electric company, because that's what they've been doing, even though they could set up online banking and have it taken out automatically. Well, imagine a lot of people like that in Japan, because people who are CEOs and leaders at companies in Japan, they are basically CEOs and leaders for life. Unless they die, retire at a very late age, or mess up so badly that they are fired, and that is definitely rare. The CEO rarely gets fired in Japan. They just get demoted, if anything. Well, if they have a love for floppy disks or CDs and don't want to explore the new technologies, they're just not going to explore the new technologies. And finally, someone in Japan said, enough. I'm launching a war on floppy disks. We are going to go to the future. And what basically happened was a younger person got in there, was familiar with newer technology, and said, why are we still using this outdated form of storage that hasn't even been in production for more than 10 years? And he is now launching it so that they can have cloud services. And by the way, this is a government official. This is how you think our government could be inefficient? We're talking about a government here who is still using floppy disks. I mean, that would personally scare me, but whatever. So this funny story might blow some of our minds, but once you understand Japan's culture and the way they think, this actually isn't that surprising. What's actually going to be sad is that by the time, here's the thing, one thing that is mentioned in this article is that this doesn't mean that the floppies are officially done. They still have to back up all this data and documents and stuff onto the cloud and on these alternate services, and they might still be using these disks for another year or two, but eventually they will phase them out. But here's what's kind of scary. They will redo this system, the new people in charge. They will get it set, And if something better comes along, guess what? If those people are still in charge, we set the system up, we like it the way it is, we're not going to change it, and they will probably fall a couple decades behind in technology. Again, even though they're selling high-tech technology to everyone else in the world. It's a very interesting country, but it's also a very beautiful country. I cannot wait to go back, if for nothing else than to see the mountains and to walk the streets of Akihabara again. But anyway, I would love to know, what do you think of this story? Does this story confuse you? Does it make sense now? I would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Well, since you did, I want to take a few moments to send appreciations out there to our YouTube and Patreon members. You see these names? These are people who financially support the channel. If you want to do so, you may do so at the links below. Also, remember to check out the iCritic Live podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever podcast platform you listen to. And oh yeah, one more thing. We have other videos that you can check out. Especially that one. So yeah, have fun with that.